Item 7 was laid over, and we're starting with item 8, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, docket number 15-3549, block 1410, lot 68, 110 through 120 East 76th Street in the Upper East Side Historic District. A row of 6 neo-Grec style row houses designed by Augustus Hartfield and built in 1883 to 85 and altered in the 20th century. The application is to amend Certificate of Appropriateness 12-6091 for the alteration and the reconstruction of the facade and the construction of additions, zoned R8B, and this was heard January 5th, 2010.
Commissioners, Lisa Schaefer, Preservation Staff. In 2010, the Commission approved altering and rehabilitating 6 row houses into 3 residences at 110 through 120 East 76th Street. And the work included reconstructing the facade of number 116, which is the one in brown here, and raising it to align with the height of the adjacent building, number 114. And the other 5 facades are to be restored with alterations at the basement level. Also, the proposal included the construction of rooftop additions and extending the rear of the building. And due to the difficulty in obtaining matching brownstone, the applicant is now asking the Commission to allow the use of cast stone for reconstructing this facade and the bases of the other buildings.
What is this? Yeah, no, but is this we taking testimony? Okay, hearing open, please. Motion second. Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Gavin McCrae-Gibson of McCrae-Gibson Architects. We're here today to talk about the brownstone that's being used for the renovation of the facade. The original facade was made of Portland stone, but that quarry was closed in 2012. There are only very small stocks of that stone available. We have been able to source enough of the original quarried stone to repair the majority of the facade. That part of the facade that was going to be repaired with Portland stone under the original Certificate of Appropriateness. There are insufficient stocks of this Portland stone available to do the rest of the project. The remaining parts, which account for 33% of the facade, are the base of the building and the 116. Those were all new construction. The base is new because we are changing the entrances, and the 116 is new because, as Lisa mentioned, it's being raised to the level of the 114. We propose to use cast stone as being the best material available to match the existing Portland stone, and we have submitted some samples here to the Commission. The cast stone is capable of matching the color of the existing Portland stone and the grain, which is very important because the original stone has quite a lot of mica in it, so it has a kind of sparkle effect. A restrained, subtle, but nevertheless noticeable sparkle effect. The cast stone can get very, very close to that grain and color. And we have some samples here, as I mentioned. So that is something which is available, and we respectfully request that we be allowed to use that material.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Yep.
Maybe I missed the prior presentation or something, but what's the condition of the buildings right now? Is there a photograph to show the existing conditions? It's hard to understand why you're doing this much scope.
The project consists of the removal of the 6 brownstones behind the building, the creation of 3 new single-family houses. That work is about 60% complete. The building is almost finished behind the facade, with the exception of the interiors. The facade work is on hold pending this request to use cast stone in the areas that I mentioned. The project is ready to move ahead at this point, but we need an approval for the use of cast stone.
No, I'm just trying to understand, like you're replacing all of the ground floor area. What's the condition of the facades now, and why is that one facade being completely reclad or rebuilt, or I'm not sure what's going on with that?
The condition of the facades is very poor. This project was abandoned for 8 years prior to its having been purchased in, I think, 2010. It had been allowed to deteriorate, become something of a neighborhood eyesore. It was abandoned. There were no tenants in there at all for those 8 years prior to the purchase. Originally, this was part of a row of 13 brownstones, of which these 6 remained. They were single-family brownstones behind the facade. The project is to create 3 single-family houses, so they become double wide. Now, in answer to your question of the 116, because this is on a slope, the row originally stepped down the hill. The step point was here, which would have been right in the middle of one of those townhouses, so the floors would not have aligned anywhere within the house. We made application to raise this facade by constructing it new. It was already in the worst shape of all of the facades, and the Certificate of Appropriateness permitted this to be raised and built new. That's the reason why that one is new. As far as the entrances, of course, they originally had single-family entrances, which were not in the right location for a double-wide townhouse. And furthermore, all the bases were in significantly deteriorated shape and had very frequently, in every case, in fact, been altered substantially, so that there was no contributing quality in the base of the building.
Is this all true?
So as you can see, the intent of this has been to restore it to a historical condition as much as possible, consistent with the entrances.
And the only issue before you today is the substitution of cast stone for what was previously approved, which was using real brownstone.
And so why aren't you using brownstone of some sort?
Right, the reason is because the original quarry closed down and only very small stocks of that original material are available. Enough of that material is available, which is this is new quarry material, but to repair those parts of the facade which are not being changed. These parts that we're proposing to do in cast stone constitute the new areas, new construction, as opposed to the repair. There is insufficient available quantities of that Portland stone matching the original material to complete the project. Having looked at all the other alternatives, the cast stone is the closest thing that one can obtain to the original stone, since those stocks are depleted.
So from no quarry, not just the one that you think the original came from, you're just saying that there's nothing, that they don't make, there's no more
That's correct.
brownstone to be had anywhere?
That matches.
There were 9 sources
Uh-huh.
that we looked at to try to find this material. Of those 9 sources, we were able to find only enough to complete the repair of the existing townhouses.
Can you discuss
There
the,
aren't any quantities available for the remainder.
can you discuss the Chinese brownstone that you looked at?
I was speaking before of the Portland stone. That is a U.S. brownstone, which has been closed down. There is a Chinese brownstone, which is called sinitic, which is this one here. The problem with the sinitic brownstone is it has quite a different grain, and its color is not really comparable. It's brown, but it has none of the characteristic mica in it. If you look at it, it's flat. Whereas with the brownstone, perhaps you can see here, if I turn it a little bit, it has quite a lot of reflectivity in it, which one can obtain using the cast stone quite adequately, but we cannot get that in sinitic. It's a flat and matte-looking stone. We think unsympathetic to the original stone.
But won't a cast stone wear differently than a brownstone, so ultimately you won't get that kind of uniformity anyway?
Well, actually, brownstone doesn't wear very well, so the cast stone might wear better, but would they
That's
be
what I mean.
comparable? I think they would be comparable. The weathering of the 2 stones is not that different from one another. I can't tell you with any great degree of certainty what it would look like in 100 years, but the 2 stones are comparable.
The cast stone is comparable to the brownstone in wear and...
Yes.
Michael, do you have a question?
Yeah, I typically, when you approach a sandstone restoration project, you do a condition assessment, which I assume you've done. When you completed that assessment, what were the different levels of intervention that you established? Did you establish retooling? Did you establish stone Dutchman? Did you establish replacement stone using salvage stone? Have you looked for salvage sources?
There's 3 levels of intervention. One is new stones, second is Dutchman, and the third is the product, which was included in the Certificate of Appropriateness.
Mhm.
These areas here show where we would be incorporating new stone. Depending on the stone, some of those are new blocks that replace one for one existing, and sometimes they're Dutchmen to just repair that bottom stone which is damaged. In other cases where you have just smaller repairs necessary, say to a molding, they can come and go on. Now, so the condition assessment is in those three grades. As I mentioned, there was only enough material that we could source anywhere to repair with the first two categories, the new stone and the Dutchman, those areas which we require for the repair part of the facade. There's no available stone available for the base or the 116 in Portland. The Certificate,
From Mike Meehan's quarry,
I'm sorry?
from the Portland
Yes,
quarry,
correct,
Mike
yes.
Meehan's.
Yes. So the Certificate is a stone, but it's not a good match. We feel the cast stone is a better match, mainly because it maintains the grain and color sympathy to the original stone.
Do you have a sample of the cast stone?
Yes.
Oh, it's this one, okay.
And that, can you
I
pass?
just passed
the-
that one with the old brownstone. Yeah, why don't you do all three of them?
Yeah.
Now, I just have to.
And you didn't bring, you don't have photographs of the existing, you're saying you don't have that this time?
That's the real.
No, I mean, of the building, photographs of the building.
Fortunately with this one, that of course we had to take it off the building, it hasn't been prepared, so it's
Rough.
in the condition that was coming off the building. And one other thing I'd like to just mention in response to your question, yes, we are reusing the stone that is coming off the base of the
This is
building.
Chinese.
So we're scavenging every possible thing that we can find, which would give us Portland stone.
That looks rich, doesn't
Okay.
So where's-
Passing them around, then.
Yeah, where's
go
the
ahead.
sample that came from out of
China?
the country?
Right
Yeah,
here.
China.
Coming up behind you.
That's got gray in it, it's too gray.
Is it too bright? So the Portland is what you're proposing for the infill?
No, Portland's the original.
No, the original is that one.
Yeah, but that's like, I guess that's a sample of Portland.
But then there's a
There's some Portland.
Yeah, he's,
still
the-
in the quarry.
yeah, so he's,
Okay.
this is for the patching,
Yeah.
and
That's the Chinese.
I would use
We think that
Let's
there
see
may
that
be
when we
some
come through.
severe problems with the quality control as well, getting boxes from China.
Yeah.
Just because they tell us what they think it's going to be, we don't have any guarantee that it's going to be that.
But you have the ability when it arrives to reject anything.
That's true. On the other hand, we know that we can get a very good
use
match
the
of color and
Chinese.
quality with pasta, and that that's made local. So therefore, its quality control can be very good.
And so on the ground floor now, none of the brownstone is any good, you're saying? Or it had brownstone, but it's
The
all,
brownstone has to be demolished here. The existing ground floor has quite a bit of brownstone, although it's in bad condition, but we're going to retool that material.
oh, you mean you're changing all the
We're going to
doors?
demolish this, retool some of that, whatever is available and is in good condition when it's removed, and retool that to use in here along with the stocks, very limited stocks of original Portland stone that we've been able to source by going to a lot of different yards and just getting a few blocks here and a few blocks there. That whole process has resulted in enough material to restore all those parts of the building that were going to be kept as compared to those parts which were new construction.
Let me just jump in for a second,
Yes.
Gavin. If I could just jump in for a minute, Commissioners. The C of A, which approved the bigger project, this is the rendering that, for the final approval. One thing I did want to repeat to everybody is each of the 6 buildings had been highly altered, including having the parlor floor windows redone. Often these facades were stuccoed and painted. As part of your discussions with the applicant during the approval process, you push them to unify the facades as much as possible in terms of material and color to accommodate the reuse of these buildings, which were dilapidated and several of them had unsafe building notices from DOB. You approved reconstructing the ground floors entirely. So while above the ground floor, with the exception of this building, most of the brownstone is in place and was required to be repaired. As part of the bigger approval, which was to salvage these structures, everything below here is new.
And 116 as well.
And the entire one that had the problem, right?
Right.
They all had problems. Several of these were demolished entirely by approved, yes.
Okay. Any other questions? We'll start then. Thank you. Michael Devonshire. Discussion. Just, no, there's no testimony because it's already been, you already had testimony, apparently.
The finding stone for a stone restoration project is always a Herculean effort in this city. Less so, I have found, and we've been doing it for over 30 years, less so Portland, Connecticut, which was a prolific stone. It's everywhere. And so in this particular case, I would say that I would need to be convinced that every possibility I know that Mike Meehan's quarry only has 400 or 500 square feet of the material left. I understand that. There are numerous salvage opportunities where Portland, Connecticut brownstone can be obtained. In the case of the Sinitic sandstone, I know that Berkshire stone is able to get not just one type of Chinese sandstone, but several types, some of which have varying levels of micaceous inclusions in them. And so for me, the other aspect of a sandstone project and the facade work with sandstone is that there are variations within quarries, so that there's always a range, a modified, but always a range of color and the amount of mica within any given facade in New York City. And so for me to go from point A to complete replacement with a substitute material, which I doubt if the applicant would be willing to make the expenditure to come up with a range of cast stone that would be replicative of a stone facade. It's very difficult for me to approve this as presented.
Joan?
I understand everything that Michael has said, and he's certainly the expert on this. But looking at it from a construction point of view and knowing that it has to get done, and also I went through a lot of pains restoring New Haven City Hall, which was the same brownstone, only fortunately that quarry was open at that time, so I was able to get it, although we did have to do some cast stone in some areas that were very badly damaged and delicate and all that. So I could support this with the staff really monitoring some of the things that Michael has suggested, that making sure that you go through every length possible, but I would like to leave it in the staff's hands at this point, unless somebody else objects to that.
Fred?
Because it's futile.
Yep. Thanks, Joan.
I'm not an expert in this technical level of preservation, and bow to the two people who have just spoken and our staff.
I think it'd be great if they went to the lengths that Michael suggests, but I don't think that in the context of other approvals that we have made on many brownstone projects where we approve cementitious brownstone materials to be used, that this would represent a diminution of that standard. So I think that, I mean, the sample looks good. I think that the staff could try to verify that the texture, and there would be some variation in the precast, considering that there's an awful lot of it that's going to be used. But I think that with that small caveat, I could approve it as presented.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Joan's suggested strategy includes Michael's assessment, so staff could work on
Staff
this.
would have to see that Michael's tests have been, or something close to them substantially, have been met before any would be approved. Marjorie?
Yeah, well, I don't want to be a troublemaker, but I'm assuming that this stone is actually not available anywhere after exhaustive research.
Yeah.
I still have a preference for stone, and I actually don't think that there is anything so unnatural about stone that isn't quite the same match. I mean, stone is a variegated material, and if, say, this Chinese material or another material that's not Portland, but another material that's local that is still within that sort of brownstone range were available, I still think that's preferable to an artificial material when you've got existing historic material.
Oh, well, I also think that where possible, if possible, it should be a stone. Now, maybe it isn't exactly what is, what we know is originally on the building, but I guess I just think that maybe there's a way to go with the recommendation made by Joan, where, and we throw more work to the staff to do some checking to make sure that you really, I mean, we didn't see his list, this list of 9, and we know that there is something in China, but I think I would prefer the real when there's a choice, when there's a chance.
What?
Real stone.
Libby? Yeah.
I can approve the restoration that Joan suggested with strict staff supervision.
Okay. So we'll close the hearing, the motion in a second, and Joan, if you would please do this.
In the manner of 110 to 120 East 76th Street, Upper East Side Historic District, a row of 6 neo-Grec style row houses designed by Augustus Hartfield, built in 1883 to 85 and altered in the 20th century. Application is to amend Certificate of Appropriateness 12-6091 for alterations and the reconstruction of the facades and the construction of additions, noting that the building's scale, material, and details are among the features which contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the historic district. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the original row was highly altered over time, and again under the work approved under C of A 12-6091, resulting in an architectural expression clearly different from the original design. That much of the original brownstone is deteriorated, requiring patching and replacement. That the use of composite patching and matching cast stone will strengthen the historical identity of the row as an architectural unit, but where possible, we would like the applicant to work with the staff and use regular stone where possible, within reason, and that the use of cast stone to accurately replicate the color grain and other visual characteristics, if totally necessary, of the missing original stone will be in the spirit of the original approval. Do you want to add something to that, Michael?
Okay, second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? One opposed. Okay, thank you.